Welcome, traveler. You're here now, and you don't have to do anything. Just lie back. Let the lights dim around you like a flickering torch in the corridor of time. You're safe in a place far from emails, traffic, or decisions. Just silence and echoes now. And if this soft, strange journey brings you even one moment of peace, maybe leave a comment, or subscribe, or don't. It's the 1500s after all. No one's rushing here, especially not Henry. Let's begin. You open your eyes and it's cold. Not the kind of cold that stings, but the kind that lingers. A damp, Tudor kind of cold. The stone beneath you is uneven, the air thick with the smell of boiled turnips, and something vaguely royal. Sweat, maybe. Or fear. You're inside a palace. At least that's what they call it. But to you, it feels more like a decaying wardrobe with walls. The floor creaks with the weight of decisions long buried. This is the court of Henry VIII, not the young, handsome Henry with strong legs and jousting pride. No, no. You've arrived toward the end, toward the folds and the groans, toward the wheezing finale of a man once painted as a god, now groaning under his own magnificence. He doesn't walk anymore. His leg festers, not metaphorically, it's literal, a swollen, pus-seeping ulcer that smells before it arrives. The physicians hover near it with potions, prayers, and an admirable sense of denial, and still, no one tells him no. You watch as courtiers scurry like anxious mice in embroidered vests. They bow lower than gravity intended. One wrong look, one misplaced smile, and it's off with your head, possibly slowly, possibly publicly, and certainly confusingly justified. The king sits propped on cushions, his once golden armor, now exchanged for something more breathable, robes the color of overripe plums. His face is vast and pink, and when he speaks, it's less a voice and more a declaration of appetite. He is dying, but no one says it. Saying it would mean they'd have to think about what happens next, and no one, absolutely no one, wants to think about what happens next. You drift closer to him, not physically, that would be unwise, but through the fog of time. You watch his eyes flicker with something not quite fury, not quite sadness, something royal. It's hard to be king, he once said, when your knees betray you and your wives keep disappearing. One beheaded, one divorced, one dead in childbirth. Another surprisingly survived him. But at this point in the narrative, Henry is not so much a husband as a myth unraveling in slow motion. He reaches for his goblet, clumsy fingers wrapped in rings. His drink is thick, not wine, something more medicinal perhaps. His physicians, all five of them, have prescribed herbs from Italy, pig fat from Norfolk, and leeches. So many leeches. He sips and wheezes and sighs. You, standing invisibly in this memory, can't help but notice how everything in the room smells faintly of dust and denial. A jester shuffles by, not with jokes, but with a grim report. Parliament is restless, the succession unclear. But none of that matters, not right now, because the king's foot is leaking again, and that has to be dealt with before the future can be considered. A servant lights another candle, though it's daylight. The windows are small, more like regrets than architecture. The light spills slowly across the tapestries, catching the embroidered eyes of long-dead Tudors. They stare at you. They always stare. You step backward, quietly, respectfully, The king groans in his sleep, or perhaps he's pretending. There's safety in pretending. Even monarchs prefer to close their eyes and imagine they're still young, still beloved, still thin. He dreams now of battles, likely, or maybe just meat pies. And then as the air thickens with incense, chamber pot fumes, and something darker, you realize you're not just watching a death, you're watching a kingdom holding its breath, waiting for the last breath of a man too large for his throne. And that, dear listener, is where we'll pause tonight. Not with noise, but with stillness, with that image of the king sinking into his bed of feathers and secrets. Drift now. The torch has dimmed, the jester's shoes have stilled. Sleep beneath the velvet canopy of another century. Will return slowly. You return to the same room, though perhaps it's not the same. The light has shifted colder now. The king is still asleep, or pretending, and the air is tighter, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. It is morning, or something like it. In Tudor England, mornings aren't announced with coffee and cheerful birdsong. They arrive with damp wool, stiff joints, and the smell of something stewed far too long. You hear it before you see it, the shuffling, the whisper of buckled shoes against straw-scattered stone. The groom of the stool approaches. Yes, that was a real title, and yes, the job was exactly what you're now imagining. You are now intimately acquainted with the most prestigious bottom wiper in all of England. It's a strange honor. He knows the king's moods by scent. He can read the kingdom's fate by the firmness of his majesty's bowel. And in this palace, this is not a joke. This is strategy. The groom has the king's ear, and unfortunately other regions too. You watch him approach with a bowl, a cloth, and a look of weary resignation only seen in Tudor-era servants and modern customer service workers. The king groans again, not out of pain, but memory. He mumbles the name Anne. It's unclear which one he means. There were two Annes, one he loved, one he blamed, possibly both. As the servant performs his sacred, unspeakable duties, you drift to the window. Just a slit in the stone, no glass, just lattice and fog. Outside, the courtyard is stirring. Chickens, stable boys, and the occasional important man pretending not to be panicking. Because everyone knows the king is fading, and yet no one says it aloud. No one dares speak the word death within earshot of the crown, even when the crown itself is wobbling with sweat and gout. You step outside, in your mind. No one in the Tudor court notices you, and that's probably a kindness. You pass two nobles pretending to debate policy. They are, in fact, rehearsing how to cry convincingly at the king's funeral. They're not very good at it. One tries a single tear, the other goes for a sob. Both are thinking about their land holdings. The irony is too soft to laugh at. You simply observe. A small boy walks by, holding a roasted goose leg. It is breakfast, and it's medieval. He offers a bite to a stray dog, who wisely declines. You walk farther toward the chapel. It's smaller than you expect. The stained glass is cracked. The priest is asleep, chin resting on a hymnal, opened to a hymn no one sings anymore. You sit beside him, though you don't feel your weight. You exist in the folds of this forgotten page, a visitor in the past's diary. The priest stirs and murmurs something about the king's soul. There's concern it may not ascend quickly. The king has done many things, not all of them saintly. He once declared himself the head of the church. That didn't sit well with Rome, but then Rome was rarely pleased unless gold was involved. You smile faintly. The priest scratches at a sore on his neck. You look away politely. You wander again, past the kitchens now, and here the smells punch you gently in the face. Boiled onions, blood pudding, bread so hard it's used to clean dishes, and meat. Oh, the meat. You're unsure which animal, and frankly, you'd rather not ask. The cooks move fast, dodging one another with ladles and curses. They cook not for taste, but for survival. Meals here are performances, and the king's appetite is legendary and increasingly unstable. You peer into a pot and see something wink at you. Best to move on. Back in the royal chamber, the king stirs again. He calls for music. A lute begins to play, badly. The player is sweating more than the instrument. The melody is slow, a ballad from years ago, before the divorces, before the executions. When Henry still danced, yes, he once danced, twirled, leapt. He was known for it. A king of movement. Now he's a king of swelling and pillows. But memory is kinder than reality. You see him smile, briefly, as if for a second the rhythm returned to his limbs. Then he frowns. The ulcer in his leg screams louder than the lute. He waves the musician away. The man bows, trips, apologizes, and vanishes, all in one fluid, embarrassing motion. Henry mutters something about Spain, something about betrayal. He may be dreaming again, or remembering, or both. Outside, the wind picks up. It howls through the cracks in the palace walls, like a ghost no one invited. The banners flap. The trees bend slightly, bowing, perhaps, to the end of an era. You look up. The sky is the color of old parchment, and the clouds, they resemble bishops, bloated and floating. The symbolism is hard to ignore, but you do, gently. You're just here to observe, to feel the fabric of history press against your skin like an old wool coat left too long in the rain. You sigh, so does the king, and once again, the palace holds its breath. You are walking again, though you've no memory of standing up. That's the way it works here, in Henry's England. You drift more than move, and everything smells of something left too long in a wooden box. You're in a hallway now. It's narrow and curving slightly, as if built by someone who feared straight lines. The walls are decorated with tapestries, woven stories of noble hunts and mythical beasts, though the threads are fading, like the lies they were meant to tell. Your fingers graze the edge of one. It's rough, not silk, not luxury, just effort passed off as opulence. The fabric hides cracks in the walls, literal ones, and perhaps metaphorical too. You pass a portrait. It's Henry, of course, younger, painted before the leg began to rot, before the wives started vanishing. His eyes in the painting follow you, not dramatically, just judgmentally. He was never meant to be king. That's the strange part. He was the second son, spare, unbothered, meant for the church. A quiet life, robes, books, celibacy, a word he would later consider a personal insult. But then his brother, Arthur, died, a quiet, sickly boy married to Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess who became queen not once, but twice. And just like that, Henry was heir, not because he was wise, not because he was ready, but because fate is clumsy. You imagine young Henry holding a hawk, smiling for a miniature painting. He had hopes then, dreams, mostly of jousting and conquest, less so of ulcers and annulments. You step into a side chamber now, quiet, empty, except for one servant, barefoot, pale, arranging linens with a care that feels spiritual. She doesn't see you, but you feel her loneliness anyway. She hums a tune that hasn't been written down. It floats like a moth around a candle, fragile and doomed. She pauses, looks toward the door, and whispers something. Not a name, a prayer. Not for herself, but for the king. You feel the weight of that, not just in your chest, but in the air itself. Heavy, like warm breath on cold glass. She leaves. The song does not. You walk on, back toward the chamber, past a suit of armor so large it feels defensive, as if even now someone might attack the very idea of Henry. The doors to the royal bedroom are cracked. Voices whisper inside. Three men arguing quietly, like rats negotiating over a dying horse. They speak of heirs, of the young Prince Edward, too young, too delicate, a boy barely out of swaddling, expected to rule a kingdom rotting at its roots. They mention Mary, his daughter by Catherine, a Catholic, a woman, an inconvenience, and Elizabeth, the quiet one, a clever, watching daughter of Anne Boleyn, a stain to some, a symbol to others. None of them are here, only their futures hang in the air, heavy as incense and twice as choking. You ease inside, undetected. The king is awake now, eyes open, but dim. The fire crackles nearby, as if trying to make conversation. He smells of vinegar and velvet. Did I win? He mumbles. The men don't respond. Win what? The wars? The wives? The argument with God? No one is sure anymore, least of all him. One physician who leans forward offers a syrupy mixture of herbs and denial. The king grimaces, drinks, and mutters something about St. George. And then laughter, quiet, worn, from Henry himself. A chuckle like a cough dressed up for dinner. 6 wives, he says, and still nothing fits. No one knows how to answer that. So they bow and shuffle back into the shadows. You remain, you always remain. That's the odd thing about being an observer in history. You're never really welcome, but you're never told to leave. The king gazes into the fire. His thoughts flicker just like the flames. He remembers Jane Seymour, the only wife who gave him a son, and who, quite helpfully, died before disappointing him. Jane, gentle, pale, often silent. She never argued, he murmurs, or maybe she just didn't live long enough to. You feel something in his words, regret, possibly, but more likely, confusion, the kind that comes at the end when the crown feels heavier than the head. A dog enters the room, small, gray, and clearly smarter than half the council. It curls at the king's foot and sighs with an eloquence reserved only for animals and the truly tired. Henry reaches down, a motion that requires effort and audible discomfort, and scratches behind its ears. "Good boy," he says, "you don't ask for anything." Another pause, a breath, a memory. You hear footsteps outside, fast ones, urgent. A messenger arrives. Something about a rebellion in the north. Peasants, probably, or nobles pretending to be peasants. Either way, the message ends the same: unrest. Henry waves the scroll away. "Let them wait," he says, and so they do. You watch the candle beside the bed tremble, its wax puddles slowly, like time deciding where to go next. The king closes his eyes again, not to sleep, just to escape the room. You do the same, step back, let the warmth of the fire melt into the quiet of the stone, and once again the world hushes. It's quieter now, the kind of quiet that only exists when something important is about to be lost. You feel it in your chest, not fear, just stillness. You are in a corridor again, or maybe it's a memory of a corridor. The walls lean ever so slightly, like old men eavesdropping. A draft whispers along the flagstones, curling around your ankles like a question no one dares ask. You follow it. It leads you toward the Privy Council chamber. Yes, that's what they called it. A room filled with the most important men in England, none of whom have any idea what to do. You slip inside unnoticed. It smells of damp velvet, candle grease, and secrets kept too long. 12 men, all dressed in black and gold, all pretending this is just another Tuesday. One clears his throat, another scratches something invisible behind his ear. They do not sit, they do not speak, they wait. The king is dying, and they are terrified, not of death exactly, but of what comes after. Because when a king dies, so do the promises he made. And many of these men were promised things: land, power, the right to be the one holding the candle when the darkness arrives. You watch them avoid each other's eyes, each one planning, each one hoping he's the only one planning. One finally speaks. The will is incomplete. Murmurs, shuffling. One man visibly winces. Of course it is, because kings rarely imagine not being kings. Death is a rumor to them, a story that happens to others. And Henry was the son, or at least he believed so, and so did they. Until now, you drift past them, quiet as a thought. A document lies open on the table, smudged ink, too many names crossed out. Jane Seymour's family looms heavily on the page. The Seymours. They whisper their intentions like polite poison. Someone mentions Elizabeth again. Too clever, one says. Too Protestant, says another. Too much like her mother, says the one who still flinches when doors slam. Anne Boleyn, still casting shadows long after she lost her head. Someone suggests a regency council for the boy, Edward. 7 men to rule in his name, 7 men who already hate each other. It's a brilliant plan, if the goal is complete collapse. A servant enters and bows so deeply You fear he may not return upright. He whispers something to a councilman who turns pale in places you didn't think skin could pale. The king is fading. Again. You follow the man as he hurries away. His shoes slap against the stone like guilt made audible. You arrive at the king's chamber again, though it feels darker this time, smaller. The windows have shrunk, or maybe it's just your imagination, warped by low light and too many unsaid things. Henry is lying flat now. No pillows, no crown, just skin, flesh, and breath. His eyes flutter open. There is no recognition in them, just a vague disappointment that the ceiling hasn't changed. A priest kneels at his side, murmuring the rites. Latin, always Latin, because even when English became the language of worship, Latin still held more drama. The king coughs, a dry, tired sound, dust leaving royalty. You step closer. His skin is pale now, except for the spots of angry purple around his feet. The leg ulcer has gone quiet, either healed or finally winning. He whispers a name, Thomas. There were so many Thomases. Thomas More, Thomas Cromwell. Both were once favorites. Both are now headless. A small pattern. He says the name again. Maybe he doesn't mean either of them. Maybe he means none. Maybe the name is a place, or a memory, or the echo of someone he once trusted. Someone gives him water. He barely sips. The fire has burned down low, just embers now, glowing like tired eyes. And in the silence you hear something strange. Laughter, not in the room, somewhere beyond, in the kitchens, the servants' quarters. It's hard to tell. But someone, somewhere, is laughing, not mockingly, just living. Because outside this chamber, the world still turns. Pigs are still fed, bread still burns, babies are still born, unwanted or adored, and the king is simply dying. You look at his face. It's softer now. The anger has bled out. What remains is confusion. He ruled for nearly 4 decades, changed religion, married 6 times, bankrupted his treasury and filled it again, killed friends, made enemies, and now he lies under a blanket that smells of rosemary and sweat. You step back. Let the candlelight blur your vision. Let the stone beneath your feet remind you that history is heavy and it never forgets the weight of its kings. The fire sighs, the priest mumbles, and the king, he sleeps. For now, you are not where you were. That much is certain. But then again, were you ever really anywhere at all? The palace seems to rearrange itself while you're not looking. Corridors bend, tapestries blink, doors you don't remember now creak open. You are in the wardrobe room, a strange place for a king to leave echoes. Bolts of fabric hang like forgotten banners, silks from Italy, velvets from France, linens stiff with starch and ambition. You touch one, it's rougher than it looks. Beauty in Tudor England is often a lie told with good lighting. The tailor's table is covered in measuring cords, tarnished scissors, and half-sewn garments no one will ever wear. You see it now, a doublet meant for Henry. Size, immense, style, regal with a hint of desperation. The buttons are pearl, or pretending to be. The sleeves puff out like pride. He always dressed for the part, even when his part was mostly sitting and declaring things. You hear a servant muttering to herself. She's folding a robe, her hands moving automatically, her eyes somewhere else, probably on her family or her safety, or whether the robe she's folding will end up in the fire when the new king decides red is too political. Clothing is power here. Lace equals status, fur equals fear, wool equals peasant. Henry wore everything, layers upon layers, as if hiding the man beneath the monarchy. You drift out, slowly, like steam escaping a broken kettle. You're in the gardens now, not lush, not colorful. This is January. The hedges look like failed sculptures. The trees have forgotten what leaves are. And yet, someone is raking. A boy, small, narrow, singing to himself. The tune is off key and perfect. He sings about a queen with golden hair and a fox that stole the moon. You pause. He doesn't see you, but he keeps singing. Children often do, even when empires collapse. Behind him, stone statues lean into the cold. One has lost a nose, another is covered in lichen. A third, well, it might never have been finished. Tudor art wasn't always about accuracy. Mostly it was about intimidation. You sit on a low stone wall. You can feel the frost through your bones, though you aren't really sitting. You're observing. You always are. From here, you can see the tower. Not the Tower of London, just a tower for hunting birds, or watching enemies, or imprisoning friends. It depends on the decade. Henry once stood there, watching falcons dive. He liked falcons. They did what they were told, unlike most of his wives. You hear bells, not church bells, court bells, small handheld ones, rung by a page with trembling hands. The king has requested his fool. You follow. Back inside, the air grows warm again, stale. There's always a hint of something unpleasant in the king's chambers. Rot, maybe, but polite rot, wrapped in satin and guarded by men with sharp beards. The fool enters. No bright colors, no jester hat, just a tunic and fear. He bows low, so low his nose almost touches the floor. Make me laugh, says Henry. The fool hesitates for a long time. Then finally, a bishop, a barmaid, and a pig walk into a tavern. The king laughs before the punchline. It's not joy, it's memory. He remembers laughter, and sometimes that's enough. The fool is dismissed with a wave. He survives another day. Not all of them do. Henry sighs, then speaks softly. Did I change the world? No one answers. He tries again. Did I make England better? Still silence, but respectful this time, because the truth is, no one knows. He broke with Rome, created a church, burned heretics, built palaces, ruled like thunder. But better? That's not a Tudor question. That's a question for quieter centuries. You move closer. He's staring at his ring, the one with the Tudor rose. His fingers are swollen now. The ring barely fits. He tries to take it off, fails, tries again, fails again. He sighs. Leave it. he says. And that is how legacy works. You try to remove it when it no longer fits, but sometimes it stays anyway. Tight, discolored, painful. The fire pops. A spark flies out and dies on the rug. No one notices. Outside, the wind has returned. It howls around the chimneys like a warning written in air. You close your eyes, but the images continue. The flickering light, the cold hands, the muffled sobs of the maid folding linen, and then footsteps, not loud, not urgent, just final. Someone is coming, but not yet. You're not quite sure when you re entered the king's chamber. It folds around you now like heavy velvet, thick with breath, dust, and something sadder than silence. There are fewer people here today. That's how it goes. Toward the ends, even power is abandoned gently. A physician sits by the fire, nodding off with a book in his lap. He's read the same paragraph for 2 days now, mostly about humors, blood, phlegm, and the proper placement of leeches. All wrong, of course, but confidently wrong. You walk past the fire. The king is still in bed. His face has changed. It's thinner, grayer, less like a man, and more like a carving of one. Someone's brushed his hair, or tried to. The top looks regal, the sides slightly defeated. The effect is charming in a tragic sort of way. A nurse adjusts the blanket. It slides off. She covers him again. This happens every hour. It is now a ritual. There's a stool near the bed. On it, a goblet. The wine has gone sour, not that it mattered. The king stopped drinking yesterday. You sit, or rather, you linger at the foot of the bed. You watch him breathe. It's shallow now, as if each breath is borrowed. His lips move, no sound. You lean closer. It's a name, or a fragment of one, possibly Latin, but possibly nonsense. At this point, even the king's dreams have started to unravel. The physician stirs and frowns. He's supposed to do something, record something, but there's no protocol for this part. They didn't teach how to write down the exact moment when a monarch becomes a memory. A priest enters quietly, not the same one as before. This one is younger. He wears the confidence of someone who hasn't yet lost enough people. He whispers prayers, gently, rhythmically, the kind of words that sound holy even when you've stopped believing in them. Henry's fingers twitch, maybe in response, maybe not. Outside the window, you hear a bird, a winter bird, foolish or brave, hard to tell. Someone coughs in the hallway, a dry, sharp sound. Then footsteps. Again, always footsteps. It's not a messenger this time. It's a nobleman, one of the ones with eyebrows shaped like ambition. He peeks in, sees the king, nods, leaves. That nod was not respect. It was accounting. You follow him, just briefly. Down the corridor, around the bend, into a chamber where voices are kept low and chairs are slightly too ornate for comfort. They are planning already. The king's death must be announced carefully, with pageantry, with restraint, with just enough mourning to be credible, and just enough celebration to seem stable. There must be black drapes, and trumpets, and Latin, so much Latin. And then, immediately, There must be Edward, young, pale, 8 years old, the boy with the crown too big for his hair. You drift back before they start assigning titles to each other. That always gets tiresome. The king hasn't moved, but something's changed. The tension in the room has loosened. The dog is back, sitting quietly. It knows things before anyone else. The priest is still praying, the nurse still smoothing sheets, the physician now awake and pretending he never nodded off. A clock somewhere chimes, not a grand clock, just a small one, meant to be ignored. Time in this palace is starting to hesitate. You step closer, closer still, and now you can see it. His eyes open, just slightly. He sees something, or someone, maybe a memory, maybe a woman, maybe the version of himself he liked best. He smiles, a little, and then he exhales, not loudly, not dramatically, just one last time. And just like that, the room is full, not with people, but with absence. Everyone knows without being told. The nurse weeps quietly. The priest stops mid-verse. The dog lays its head down. No one rushes. No one speaks. The king is dead. Long live someone else. You step back. Your feet no longer touch the floor, not that they ever did. Outside, the snow has begun to fall, soft, slow flakes. They gather on the windowsill, on the roof, on the statues that never blink. And inside the walls of the palace, a single candle dies. No one relights it. The king is gone, and still the room has not changed. The fire burns low, the dog sighs again, and the priest closes his book, not with ceremony, just with the same tired motion as one might fold a shirt. No one announces it aloud, not at first. They simply begin doing things. The nurse removes the goblet. The physician reaches for his quill. The priest presses fingers to his temple, as if checking for a thought that might have wandered off. Outside the chamber, the servants already know. Of course they do. Death always leaks through walls, especially royal ones. You follow one now. A boy, young, maybe 12. He walks quickly, but not too quickly. He's been trained in the proper speed of delivering bad news. It must look solemn, but not too eager. He rounds corners, whispers to guards, nods at scribes. Each nod drops like a pebble into a still pond. Ripples, always ripples. The guards say nothing, but their hands rest more firmly on their hilts, as if they expect the corpse to protest. You reach the council chamber again. This time, the door is open. Inside, velvet, fur, and unease. Nobles gathered around a long table, pretending they have not been waiting for this moment their entire careers. One speaks first. We must keep order. Another. The boy must be protected. A third. The people must believe it was peaceful. It was peaceful. In the same way a storm is peaceful once it's over and everything is broken. They begin to write declarations, statements. The ink freezes slightly on the tip of the quill. A scribe breathes on it, pretends not to shiver. The king has passed. One writes, "He now rests in the glory of our Lord." It's a good sentence, poetic, vague, clean, but it leaves out the sweating, the rotting, the years of ulcers and groaning and wives beheaded for reasons that no longer even feel dramatic. Still, it will go in the records, and records, as everyone knows, are just well dressed rumors. You drift along the edge of the room. A tapestry falls slightly loose from its nail. No one notices. The council votes quietly on who should say what, who should stand where, who should cry. One man, too enthusiastic, suggests music. He is ignored. Outside, bells begin to toll. Not loud, not yet. Just once, and then silence, a rehearsal for morning. In the chapel, black cloths are being hung, slowly. One slips from a hook. A servant catches it before it hits the floor. You see his lips move. A curse? A prayer? Both? You watch him hang the cloth again, this time more carefully, as if this one gesture might make up for centuries of whatever this was. Back in the royal chamber, they are preparing the body. The phrase sounds dignified. The reality is not. The skin is beginning to shift. That's the polite way to say it. A surgeon has been called, not to heal, but to seal. The body must be made presentable. It is no longer Henry. It is now the late king. You walk past the mirror, the one he had covered years ago. Superstition, perhaps, or maybe he just didn't want to see what he had become. It's still covered now. Dust clings to the cloth. The mirror beneath hasn't seen light in a decade. You wonder what it would reflect now. Outside the palace, life continues, clumsily. A cart breaks a wheel, a dog chases a goose, a woman shouts something vulgar in the market. They haven't heard yet. When they do, some will cry, some will drink, some will nod like the nobleman did earlier. Accounting, always. In the stables, a boy is brushing a horse. He hums a tune, stops, starts again. The horse blinks slowly. The boy speaks to it as if it were human. "New king, same oats," he says. The horse flicks its ear, possibly in agreement. Back in the hallway, messengers are being dispatched, each given a route, a scroll, and a look that says, "Do not read this. We will know if you do." They ride off in different directions, toward parliaments, bishops, dukes, distant cousins with claims to things they shouldn't have. And the people who receive these messages, they will read them slowly, then fold them twice, never once, never 3 times. 2 is the proper amount. It's how you fold history. The queen's rooms remain locked, not that there is a queen now, just a memory of one, or several. You pass a door with 6 scratches on it, one for each wife. You wonder who carved them. Probably no one, probably everyone. Henry lies still now, the body wrapped in linen, a candle lit beside him. You stand there. You think about all that happened and all that didn't. You think about wives and wars and churches and children, about meals eaten too fast and decisions made too slowly, about love confused with ownership. The dog whimpers. The fire finally dies, and in the silence the palace breathes again. The palace wears black now, not just the drapes, or the clothes, or the ribbons tied clumsily to torch sconces, but the very air feels draped in something thick and silent. You wake, or you become aware, in the great hall. You're standing beside a column carved with angels whose faces are more suspicious than sacred. They watch you as you watch everything else. A line of courtiers files in, slowly, measured steps, each one careful to look just sad enough. There is a phrase spoken often in places like this: he will be greatly missed. No one says it today. Not yet. It's too early for sentences, too early for sincerity, too early for the part of grief that involves flowers and speeches. This is the part where everyone waits to see what happens next. At the far end of the hall stands a long table. Upon it scrolls, its decrees, the king's will, or what remains of it. Certain names have been added, others mysteriously removed. The ink is still fresh in places it shouldn't be. You approach slowly, not because you're afraid, you're not really here after all, but because even ghosts learn to be cautious in political spaces. A man in fur reads aloud. The words are grand, florid, unnecessary. They tumble out of his mouth like coins falling into a puddle. The nobles nod, some frown, a few pretend to cry, though not convincingly. A woman coughs into her glove. It echoes. Everyone hears it, but no one acknowledges it. This is how mourning works among the powerful. Nothing is felt directly. Emotions are routed through etiquette, redirected through velvet, and filtered through Latin. You walk through the crowd, carefully. Some of these men would have you arrested for blinking too loudly. You pass Lady Seymour, widow, cousin, survivor. Her eyes are dry, her spine like iron. She knows what mourning looks like. She helped design it. She meets your gaze, or rather stares through you, as if sensing something just beyond understanding. She says nothing, but you feel the weight of every silence she's ever swallowed. A man beside her speaks about the legacy of the king. He uses words like valiant, reformer, God appointed. He does not mention the smell, or the executions, or the screaming during the fourth marriage. Instead, he folds his hands and continues speaking as if the truth could be outdecorated. Someone knocks over a candlestick. It clatters, a gasp, then silence, then shame. The boy who did it bows deeply, too deeply, and is ushered away. He will remember that sound forever. You leave the hall, step into the chapel corridor. The stones here are worn smooth by centuries of pacing, mostly by men who had too much to lose. You sit or hover near a bench beneath a stained glass window. The image is unclear. Possibly St. George, possibly a king pretending to be him. The window rattles slightly in the cold wind. Outside, snow gathers like unfinished thoughts. You see a girl no more than 8, trailing behind her governess. She looks up at the window, then down at the floor. She says, "Was he a good man?" The governess hesitates. "He was the king." It is the closest anyone will come to honesty today. You linger a little longer in the chapel. There are candles burning low, placed in brass holders shaped like lilies. One leans to the side, melting faster than the others. It drips onto the floor like time trying to escape. A monk hums something tuneless in the corner. You think it's a prayer, but it might be indigestion. Hard to tell with monks. A pigeon coos from somewhere in the rafters. It has no respect for death. You rise, if rising is what you do, and float back through the west wing, past portraits that seem more alive than the men they portray. You stop at one, Henry again, younger, smiling, one foot planted squarely forward, as if daring the viewer to disagree with him. It's a lie, of course. All portraits are lies. They are the memory the subject wanted, not the one they earned. The real Henry is upstairs, wrapped in linen, cooling slowly, and still. Down here, his face beams from every wall. You turn from the portrait and walk down a long, echoing corridor where no one dares speak above a whisper. You hear the scribes at the end copying the official notices, hand by hand, letter by letter. They pause before writing the final line. The date. It must be correct. The moment they write it, the old king ends, and the new one begins. And so, with one delicate motion, it is done. The scribes lean back, exhale, crack their fingers. History, it turns out, is written in stiff joints and fading ink. You exhale too, not because you need to, you don't, but because the room is finally still, and for a moment it feels like time has stopped, not forever, just long enough for the crown to cool. It's early, not morning, just early. That strange hour when candles are still needed, but no one's quite sure why they're awake. You're standing in a room that was once used for banquets. It smells faintly of boiled beef, wet wood, and obligation. The chairs have been pushed against the walls, the floor swept 3 times already, and yet nothing feels clean. There are footsteps again, always footsteps, lighter this time, softer. You turn toward the sound and see a boy, not quite tall enough to wear the crown that's waiting for him. His hair is combed, his collar stiff, his eyes tired in a way that should only belong to old men and widows. This is Edward, son of Henry, future king, 8 years old. He walks carefully, not because he's afraid of tripping, but because he knows everyone is watching, even when they pretend not to. A tutor hovers nearby, whispering Latin phrases he's already forgotten. Another man, perhaps an uncle, adjusts the boy's sleeve for the 3rd time. Perception is everything, he mutters. The boy nods, not because he agrees, but because it's easier. You follow him down a corridor, not through walls, through memory. You pass a line of servants standing in silence, each one holding something, a scroll, a candle, a pair of gloves, all waiting for instruction. None will speak unless spoken to. None will smile unless commanded. You wonder what it feels like to be watched by everyone but known by no one. Edward reaches the council chamber. The doors are opened by men who bow lower than necessary. Inside, voices hush. He is led to a chair far too large. Someone has placed a cushion on it, as if that solves anything. He sits carefully. His legs dangle slightly. A man begins reading. The titles are long. The words are dense. Every sentence is a hallway with too many doors. The boy blinks once, twice. He is not thinking about laws, or taxes, or the weight of succession. He is wondering if he will be allowed to go outside later. You drift around the room. You've been here before. Last time, the dead king sat in this very chair, sweating, growling, declaring. Now it holds his echo and his air. One counselor clears his throat. We serve at the pleasure of his majesty. There is a pause. The boy nods. That is enough. The man sits. Another one stands. England is secure. That is not true, but it sounds comforting. Everyone agrees not to challenge it. You float past the windows. Outside, snow still falls in lazy swirls. The trees lean slightly, as if listening. You find yourself in the old king's private study, dustier now, books still open. One chair tipped slightly back, as if someone just left. A list sits on the desk. Names. Many are crossed out, some in ink, some in something darker. You don't read the names. You already know them. They've been whispered all throughout these halls for years. Anne, Thomas, Cromwell, More. Each one believed they understood Henry. Each one believed they were safe. They were not. And now the boy inherits everything: the crown, the silence, and the mistakes. A servant enters the study behind you, sees the list, hesitates, folds it in half, sets it in the fire. The paper curls quickly. Words disappear like guilt being erased. And just like that, history shifts. Back in the great hall, a seamstress is preparing garments for the proclamation. Royal blue, gold thread, buttons so small they're nearly impossible to see, but will take hours to sew. It must all look effortless. That's the rule. Even as the world wobbles, the fabric must shimmer. You see Edward again, walking toward the chapel now. His steps are slower. The boy is not tired, not physically. It's the weight, invisible to others, heavy to him. He stops near a statue of his father, marble, lifeless, too tall. He looks up, then down. You wonder what he sees. A legend, a burden, a warning. He turns away. The statue remains, so silent, watching nothing. The chapel is quiet, too quiet. A choir rehearses outside, but not yet here. The boy kneels, not from faith, from habit. He whispers something. You don't catch the words. Maybe no one is meant to. The candle beside him flickers. The flame leans toward him, then pulls away. You stand beside him, just for a moment, and for the first time since you arrived, everything is still. No footsteps, no whispers, no decisions. Just a boy and a crown and a very long road ahead. You are in the courtyard now, not the polished one near the chapel, the muddy one behind the kitchens, the one where truth lingers, barefoot and tired. A stable boy scrubs a saddle with more effort than hope. A maid hangs linens that will never quite dry. A cook sharpens a knife with the look of someone remembering someone else's mistake. No one says, "The king is dead," out loud, but the way they move says it. They say it in lowered eyes and shallower breaths. The palace above them buzzes with whispers, parchment, and rehearsed loyalty. Down here, things just continue, slightly colder, slightly slower. You walk past a stack of firewood. It's damp, useless, but no one dares throw it away. It's royal firewood now, even if it's rotting. A boy runs past you with a bucket of ashes. He doesn't look where he's going. He doesn't have to. His path has been the same every morning for the last 4 years. He turns the corner and disappears. You follow. Through the servants' passage, a low tunnel carved more from habit than stone. The walls sweat, the ceiling crouches. You emerge into a room no noble ever enters. The laundry hall, steam rises from vats of water. Women scrub garments that once touched royalty. One of them picks up a sleeve with a smear of something unpleasant. She sniffs, grimaces, dips it again. They are washing the old king out of the fabric. It will not come out. You drift upward, back into the throne room. Not many come here anymore. The throne has been draped in black cloth, not because it helps, just because tradition said it should. Dust gathers on the steps leading up to it. No one dares clean it. The dust is official now. 2 guards stand at attention, their faces frozen somewhere between grief and boredom. A third enters, whispers something. They nod, return to their silence. You approach the throne, carefully. It's larger than it looks in paintings, higher than comfort allows. You imagine Henry sitting here, legs wide, fingers drumming, ordering, laughing, lying, deciding who gets to keep their land, their head, their daughter. Now it's just a chair. You move on to the queen's wing, though there is no queen anymore, just chambers waiting for the next woman history will forget. The halls here are quieter, quieter even than the grave. You stop outside a locked door. Behind it, a room untouched since Catherine Parr last stood here. She left quickly. She always did. Inside, nothing has moved. A brush lies beside a mirror. A comb full of golden strands. A book opened halfway through a psalm. The silence here is gentler, less political, more human. You do not enter, not yet. You continue down a narrow hall that leads to nowhere. Just a window, small, framed in cold. Outside, London. It waits. The city has not been told officially, not yet. That comes with ceremony, with parades, with bells and banners. But the people already know. Rumors move faster than announcements. In taverns, someone swears he saw the king's coffin. Another claims he heard it was poisoned wine. A third says the king died choking on a prayer. They're all wrong, and somehow all correct. Truth here isn't what happened, it's what people remember believing. You step into one of the rooms used by Parliament. long benches, no cushions, a fire that burns more out of principle than effectiveness. Men gather here too, not in mourning, but in anticipation. A dead king leaves behind more paperwork than glory. They argue over taxes, reforms, which coinage to melt. No one mentions Henry's body. It's still upstairs, in linen, cooling. You drift there again, not through doorways, through the folds of regret. The room is darker now, candles burning low. Someone has placed a cross at the bedside, not for Henry, for themselves. The dog is gone. Perhaps it finally understood. A breeze sneaks in through a crack in the stone wall. It moves the curtain, just slightly. The blanket has slipped again. No one fixes it. And for the first time since his birth, Henry lies completely alone. You stand at the foot of the bed, not out of respect, out of awareness. This man, this king, this myth, he ended like everyone else, breathless, still. You whisper something, not words, just a sound, and the stone floor beneath you remembers it. Outside, the sun rises, not grandly, not with trumpets, just there, as if to say, it's done, keep going. And so we do. You're standing in a long corridor. It smells of pine. Not fresh, not sharp, old pine, sawdust, sap long dried, the scent of things built to hold other things. Ahead of you, the coffin. It's larger than most. It has to be. The carpenters worked late. They spoke in low voices, not out of reverence, but because they were nervous. Royal coffins do not tolerate mistakes. You approach slowly. The wood is dark, blackened, decorated with gold clasps, and the seal of England carved into both ends. A lion roaring, a rose blooming, all engraved with an urgency that feels more desperate than regal. Inside it lies Henry, or what remains of him. No one opens the lid. No one checks. That part is over. They sealed it quickly as tradition demanded, and also because, well, things were beginning to change. The air around him had grown thick, the linens had begun to weep, and time waits for no monarch's odor. The guards posted here do not speak. They do not blink more than is polite. They shift their weight occasionally, but only in the dark corners where no one will see. You move past them toward the chapel where the funeral rites will be performed. It is being dressed, draped in black, candles placed with mathematical precision, incense hung in brass holders shaped like lions' mouths. Priests rehearse Latin under their breath. The words wobble slightly. They are afraid of mispronouncing eternity. You sit at the edge of the wooden pews. You do not creak. You do not need to. From here, you can see the entire nave, vaulted, gray, echoing. A boy enters with a candle. He lights it and places it beside the altar. The flame tilts once, then steadies. Another follows him, carrying a silver bowl filled with holy water. He nearly spills it. No one reacts, but everyone notices. You hear the organist testing notes. They sound like a conversation between ghosts. And then the rehearsals begin, not of music, of mourning. The choir is lined up. The nobles are walked through where to stand, where to bow, how long to look heartbroken. One woman adjusts her veil 3 times. Another man practices furrowing his brow in the mirror. You drift to the pulpit. There lies the speech, written by someone who had to pretend they believed it. It calls Henry magnificent, blessed, chosen by God. It does not say loud or dangerous or terrifying after dinner. It leaves out the part where he dissolved monasteries, married 6 times, and once ordered a man boiled alive. The truth you understand now is never buried. It is simply not invited. You step into the antechamber. A wooden platform rests there. The bier. On it, the coffin will lie, surrounded by candles and whispers. It creaks when touched, a sound like bones remembering. An older man polishes the handles. He is singing to himself, not a hymn, a tavern song, soft and slow. You do not recognize the melody, but the sadness is familiar. He stops when he sees the bishop enter. The song withers. The bishop nods. No words exchanged, just the heavy silence of men paid to outlive others. The coffin is brought in. 8 men carry it with the slowness of ceremony and the strain of weight. It is placed on the bier. It groans softly. A priest steps forward and begins to chant. The words rise and fall. You feel them in your teeth. The mourners begin to enter. Rows of black cloaks, veils, gloves, rings that were never removed even when fingers swelled. They file in like shadows, lining up to remember the sun. Some cry, most don't. One man pretends to faint, another pretends not to notice. You watch from the rear near the last pew. A small child sneezes. The mother shushes him like he's committed treason. The incense burns, thick and sweet. You feel it cling to your skin like wet fabric. The priest speaks of Henry's greatness, his vision, his devotion. He does not mention the smell, or the ulcers, or the time the king demanded a cake be executed for collapsing. It's a good speech. Grand, forgettable. You drift upward toward the ceiling. The wooden beams creak above you. Birds nest there. One watches the funeral with more curiosity than grief. Below, the coffin sits in a pool of candlelight. And in that moment, the old king lies in both history and wood. The service ends. A trumpet plays one long, uncertain note, then silence, then footsteps. The nobles leave in order of importance, each bowing slightly, some deeper than others, all of them already thinking of what comes next. A boy drops his prayer book. No one picks it up. It lies there, open, page fluttering, a hymn about mercy. No one sings it. You wait until the room is empty again. Just you, the coffin, the candles, and the sense that something enormous has ended, but also not quite, because the story still breathes quietly beneath the lid. History, after all, is not what happened. It's what was left behind. You wake, or perhaps you never slept, in a carriage. It is long, black, creaking with every step of the horses, draped in cloth, lined with torch-bearers who walk not for light, but for effect. Inside the carriage lies the coffin. It moves slightly with each bump in the road. The king is being transported, not across kingdoms, just across the city, from palace to tomb, from memory to stone. The streets are quiet, not out of mourning, but because people were told to be quiet. The guards walk with spears upright, the priests with books open. The pages flap in the wind, unread. You follow behind them. No one sees you. You pass inns where curtains are drawn, houses with shutters closed. Behind them, people whisper. Children peek through cracks. Someone asks, "Is he really gone?" Another answers, "He never truly leaves." A strange thought, true in a way. You reach the chapel at Windsor, not the palace, the other one, the one built for endings. St. George's Chapel, built for kings, finished for ghosts. The doors are wide open. Inside, candles flicker, not welcoming, just waiting. You pass through the entrance. The walls are lined with carved saints. Their faces all bear the same look, disappointed sympathy. The coffin is carried slowly down the aisle. It scrapes slightly as it shifts on the shoulders. A man at the front trips, not fully, just enough to make the others curse under their breath. But the coffin doesn't fall. They reach the center. The vault has been opened. A deep, dark hole, perfectly shaped for kings. You peer into it. It is not large. It is not golden. It is not anything like the rooms Henry lived in. It is simply stone, cold, honest. A bishop begins to speak. The words echo strangely. They rise into the rafters and vanish. No one really listens. The words are expected and therefore invisible. You drift closer to the edge. Look down. There are other coffins already there. You forgot about them. Jane Seymour lies beneath. His third wife, the one who gave him Edward. She died in childbirth. They buried her quickly. Now her husband joins her. After all the others, it is her, not Catherine, not Anne, not the rest, just Jane. It feels less like reunion and more like unfinished paperwork. The coffin is lowered slowly. A pulley creaks. Dust falls like powdered regret. The chains groan, and then contact. Wood against stone. Not loud, but final. A guard sneezes. Everyone ignores it. A priest throws a handful of dirt into the hole. It lands with a soft sound that feels too private to hear. And then, a moment, stillness. Not respect, not awe, just stillness. As if the entire chapel is waiting to see if the earth will accept him. It does. Of course it does. The bishop mutters the final line. May God receive him. It is said the same way every time. No one ever asks whether God agrees. The vault is sealed, not all at once, slowly. Stone slabs placed, mortar smeared. One worker hums softly. You listen to it. It's not a hymn. It's a lullaby. You wonder if he even knows he's singing. You walk one last circle around the vault. There's no plaque yet, no carving, no words, just stillness and stone and something you think might be peace. The guests leave one by one. Not all of them walk forward. Some glance back just once, as if expecting the coffin to open. It does not. The torches are extinguished. The chapel grows dim. Outside, the sun hangs low and pale. Inside, the tomb lies quiet. It will be years before they carve his name, longer still before anyone agrees what it meant. You remain for just one more minute, one more breath, one more echo of footsteps on ancient stone, and then slowly, very slowly, you rise through the roof, back into the sky, where the wind hums songs no one taught it, and the past folds quietly back into itself. The tomb is sealed, so the candles are snuffed, the voices have moved on. But England is still very much awake. You return now not to the palace, but to the city. London smells of wet cobblestones, animal dung, ale soaked breath, and something burnt, maybe bread, maybe ambition. You walk through the alleys, not the wide ones with names, but the thin ones that wind behind truth. Here, a boy shouts news, not from parchment, but from memory. The king is dead. The boy king now rules. He doesn't know what it means, but the rhythm sells. A drunk man nods and mutters, "I liked the fat one better." A woman spits in the street, not out of grief, just habit. You step into a tavern, the kind where the floor sticks and the walls lean slightly and the air is thicker than the soup. Men sit at wooden tables, speaking louder than necessary. They talk of the old king. One says he was a tyrant. Another says he was God's will. A third says he once saw him at a joust, and he looked sad. No one agrees. Everyone drinks. At the back, a woman with a red scarf sings a song. It is about a queen who never smiled and a king who couldn't stop eating. The melody is old. The lyrics change with every verse. You stay until the fire dies, then move on, back to the palace, but not the royal chambers, not the hall of mirrors and regrets. You find yourself in the records room. It's cold here, dust on every shelf, scrolls stacked like sleeping serpents. A clerk is writing, slowly, carefully, with ink thick as memory. He is recording the end. Henry VIII, by the grace of God, King of England, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, and earthly head of the Church of England, passed into eternity on the. He pauses, sucks his teeth, then adds a flourish to the capital H. You watch the words dry. You step past the shelves, deeper in. There are scrolls here never read again. One contains the list of punishments for stealing bread during Lent. Another outlines the ceremony for washing the king's feet. Another simply says, "Burn this after reading." It wasn't. You find a cabinet, locked. Inside, records of people who were once important. Their names sound familiar, their stories forgotten. A lady in waiting, a physician who predicted the king's death 2 years early, a cook who made a pie shaped like Calais. You drift past the cabinet and find the letters. Personal, one from Anne Boleyn before her death. She writes, I am innocent, but I forgive. Tell Elizabeth. The letter ends there. No one knows if it was sent. No one wants to know. You move deeper and find something stranger. A list, handwritten, faded, titled, People Who Disappointed Me. It's in Henry's own hand. The names are many, some crossed out, some circled. You wonder if being crossed out was mercy or erasure. You leave the records room. The air outside feels newer somehow, as if history has exhaled. The boy king is still upstairs, learning how to be obeyed. Downstairs, the council plots softly, like cats near milk. In the chapel, a candle remains lit by accident. No one notices. You walk once more past the throne, still empty, still draped. Dust now clings more boldly. And somewhere, in the middle of the kingdom, a baby cries. No one connects it to anything. But something always begins when something else ends. Always. The snow has melted now, not everywhere, just enough to remind the world that it's not frozen, just paused. You are in a hallway again, one of the older ones. The stone here is darker, the arches lower, the air more cautious. There are portraits on the wall, not of the king, of those who served him, or claimed to, or tried. Faces stiff with pride, eyes that never blink. You move past them. They don't turn to watch you, but they don't need to. You feel their judgments anyway. At the far end of the corridor stands a curtain. Behind it, a door. Behind the door, the royal archives. You slip through. The room is tall, not wide, narrow like a spine. Stacks of books, not bound in leather, bound in instruction. Here lies the architecture of rule, decrees, orders, edicts, warnings. One reads, No man shall speak of the queen's hair on days of fasting. Another, let it be known that dancing past sunset is no longer approved within 5 miles of the royal bed. You wonder who wrote these things. Not Henry, not directly. But he didn't have to. His wishes arrived before his voice did. You pause before a locked chest, iron bound, dented at one corner. It is unmarked. You lean closer. Inside, you suspect, are things even the scribes feared to describe. A list of bribes, a diary, a map of which wives were buried where. The key is gone. History often is. You drift again, back to the privy garden. The snow here has retreated into the soil, leaving patches of brown, dead grass that once wore roses. A gardener rakes without much interest. His hands move from habit. He doesn't sing, doesn't speak. But as he works, he glances at the empty bench beneath the yew tree. That was Henry's bench, where he once sat in the sun, holding court with courtiers who laughed just a little too quickly. Now it sits alone, the wood cracked, the cushion gone. You sit beside it, or rather near it. The silence is full of things unspoken. The gardener finishes, leaves, you remain. You remember stories whispered about this garden, how Catherine Howard ran barefoot across it once, begging for her life, how Anne Boleyn plucked a rose here the day before she was arrested, how Henry once looked at the stars from this very bench and asked if God still liked him. No one answered. You rise, drift toward the chapel again. It is locked, but the lock is ceremonial. You pass through. Inside, the candles have burned low. Just one remains. Beside the tomb, the stone now bears his name, Henricus Rex, nothing more. No mention of wives, of wars, of wounds, just a name and a date. You float to the back of the chapel, where the choir once stood, where voices once rose in carefully tuned obedience. Now, just dust. One feather lies on the floor, perhaps from a robe, perhaps from a dove. You do not touch it. You walk the perimeter once more. Each stone has seen too much. Each beam holds breath not spoken since. Outside, bells ring, not for Henry, for someone else. A birth, perhaps, a marriage. The world has moved on, but not all the way. A nobleman enters the chapel, alone. He kneels, not out of grief, but guilt. He whispers, "You were not always wrong." Then he leaves. You stay, because ghosts don't leave when the living do. They leave when they're forgotten, and that takes time. It's night again. You're not sure how many nights it's been. In this place, time doesn't move forward, it folds. You are standing in the gallery, the long one, the one with too many windows and not enough warmth. The moonlight spills across the floor in squares, pale, sharp edged. Each beam stops at a different tapestry. None go all the way to the throne. You walk slowly. Paintings line the wall. Henry again, always Henry. In this one, he stands with a hawk. In another, with a sword. In the largest, he is seated, hand resting on a globe he never touched. The eyes in each painting follow, but not with curiosity, with expectation. He wanted to be remembered. That much is certain. Not just as king, but as something larger, a reformer, a conqueror, a father, a husband. Though those last two, not always at the same time. You reach the last painting. It is unfinished, just the outline, the crown sketched in, the face barely formed. A brush lies on the floor beneath it. Dried, forgotten. No one completed it. Maybe no one could. You drift past the canvas and find yourself in the Queen's music room. No queen sits here now. No harp is strummed. Only dust, caught in moonlight like thoughts that never landed. A music book lies open on the stand. The notes are clear, but the page is warped. Rain, perhaps, or tears. No one will play this song. You sit at the stool. It creaks. The sound echoes longer than it should. And from somewhere in the distance, you hear footsteps, slow, Measured, you turn, but no one appears. The castle remembers its king, even when it wishes it didn't. You rise and return to the throne room. The throne is uncovered now, cleaned, prepared, not for Henry, for the boy. The council has been here, discussing cushions and color schemes. No one discusses the past, not openly. The servants whisper. They say the old king's rooms feel colder, that mirrors crack on their own, that once a door slammed without wind. They do not speak of ghosts, they speak of air and heaviness. You find the old study again. A candle flickers, a draft moves your sleeve, even though you have none. You are not really here, but you are. On the desk, a box. Inside, a ring. Simple, iron, unworn. It was meant for his seventh wife. He never married her. He died before he could. Her name has been scratched from the record, but not from the box. You touch the ring. It feels warm for a moment, then cold again. You step into the hallway once more. You hear a choir, faint, not real, just memory, just air moving through stone in a pattern that resembles sound. You follow it down into the crypt, not the one where he lies, the older one where others rest, forgotten. Stone coffins, worn names, no candles, just the echo. And yet, there is peace here, no ambition, no noise, just still. You stay longer this time. You sit beside a tomb with no name, just a crown carved above it. Someone once mattered here, now they don't. And strangely, that feels like mercy. The world forgets everyone, even kings, especially kings. You close your eyes, and the stones hum their soft lullaby, the one only heard by those who no longer want anything. And for now, you don't. It's morning now, or something pretending to be morning. The sky is a dull gray, the kind that forgets to decide whether it's rain or silence. You are in the library. It is warmer here, though not from the fire. There isn't one, but from the weight of pages, thousands of them, stacked, shelved, ignored. The room smells of parchment, ink, and mildew, and something else. Dust, maybe, but purposeful dust, like it chose to settle here. You walk slowly past the shelves, books about law, about lineage, about saints and sinners, about medicine that never worked. One volume is titled The Virtues of Boiling Water, another, Women to be Avoided by Name. You stop at a table where a book is open, a large one, not finished. The page reads simply, Here ends the reign of Henry VIII. The next line has not been written. You stare at it for a long while. The ink bottle beside it is dry. The quill rests gently across the margin. Someone will return to it eventually. Maybe. You turn the page. It sticks slightly. Something spilled here once. Wine or blood or melted candle wax. You keep turning. Eventually, the pages are blank. You close the book, slowly. It makes a soft thud. the kind of sound that would go unnoticed in a loud world. But not here. Here it echoes. You move toward the far wall. Paintings again, not of kings, not of queens, just landscapes, green fields, forests, rivers that still exist, places that outlived all their rulers. A small plaque beneath one says, "No one important lived here." You smile. It feels honest. You drift now to the kitchens. They're empty, for once. No pots clanging, no orders shouted, no meat sizzling, just a knife resting across a block of wood, and a rolling pin on its side like it gave up mid task. The fire is out. The ashes are cool. A single onion sits in a bowl, uncut, forgotten. You do not touch it. You listen instead to the mice scratching behind the walls, to the roof beams creaking, to the faint drip of something above, maybe rain, maybe time. You step into the servants' quarters. The beds are small, narrow, made of straw and effort. One blanket still bears a stitched initial, M. No one remembers whose it was, but it was cared for. That's clear. Someone mended a tear with tiny stitches. It wasn't love, maybe, but it was something close. You walk through a door that leads nowhere, just a small walled garden, overgrown now. Vines crawl up the stone like secrets with bad posture. A bench sits beneath a crooked tree. Someone once kissed someone here, and someone else probably lied. The air smells of damp roots and faded laughter. You sit. The stone is cold, but not unfriendly. You watch a squirrel dig near the wall. It pauses, looks at you, then continues. It does not care about thrones. It is trying to remember where it buried something. You envy it. You rise, return through the back corridors, past the laundry line where no clothes hang now, past the hidden door where Anne once escaped for an hour before being found again, past the room with the broken latch, left that way because the man who fixed things died 3 winters ago. You find yourself back in the main hall. The throne is gone, taken away to be polished or replaced. In its place, nothing, just a space, and strangely, it feels better that way. You stand in the emptiness, and for the first time in all your wandering, you don't remember why you're here. You don't need to. The story has told itself again and again. Every stone has whispered it. Every draft has sung it. And now, finally, they are quiet. And so are you. You are beneath the palace now, below the crypt, below the servants' passages, even below the silence. This part was never finished. It was started once, long ago, as a wine cellar, or a secret passage, or a prison. No one agrees. The stones don't care. You walk carefully, not because you might fall, you can't, but because it feels like the place where people once did. The floor is uneven, a mixture of dirt, brick, and something older than both. The ceiling sags in places, held up by beams that sigh when you pass. There are no torches, just a faint glow. You don't know where it comes from. A memory, maybe. The walls are close here. They press in softly, like hands trying to remember how to pray. You pass a door without a handle. Behind it, you feel nothing, which is somehow worse than feeling something. You keep moving. A rat scurries across the floor. It does not acknowledge you. You are not part of its kingdom. You reach a chamber, square, damp. In the center, a table. Upon it, nothing. And yet, it hums. You sit. The stone beneath you is cold, but expected. You rest your hands on the table. It remembers. Not names, not events, just weight of elbows, of scrolls, of lives arranged and rearranged like place settings. This was a place where men whispered loudly and listened carefully. You wait, you listen, and faintly you hear it. Not voices, but pressure, the way silence grows when something wants to be spoken. You stay a little longer. You don't interrupt. Eventually, it passes. You rise, back through the tunnel, back past the walls that lean like tired queens, back into air that moves again. You are in the west wing now, the one no one uses anymore. Here, the paint peels with such dignity it feels intentional. Chairs remain exactly where someone left them 70 years ago. A teacup still rests on a windowsill. Inside it, a dead bee. Beside it, a note, unreadable. You leave it. Not because it's sacred, because it's not yours. You walk through the nursery. It smells of lavender and secrets. A cradle sways gently. From wind? From memory? You do not ask. A doll lies on the floor, face down. One arm is missing. You leave her too. The curtains in here move, even though the window is shut. Everything moves eventually, even kings. You return to the main corridor. Someone is sweeping. An old man, hair like smoke, hands like paper. He hums something tuneless. It isn't a song, it's a habit. You stand beside him. He stops sweeping, looks at you, not quite at you, through you. He nods, once, then continues. The dust has nowhere else to go. You move back toward the great hall. It is empty again. The space where the throne once stood is now just floor, and the light through the high windows touches it gently, as if to say, it's all right. You can rest now. You step into that light. It does not warm you. It does not blind you. It simply exists, like the memory of a voice, the shape of a name. And you, the witness, finally stop walking, not because there's nowhere else to go, but because you've been everywhere, and what remains is peace. The palace is quieter now, not empty, just quieter, as if even the walls are forgetting what they were built for. You stand in a doorway that used to matter. Beyond it, the council chamber, once filled with men pretending to agree. Now, chairs, just chairs, some upright, some askew, one tipped slightly forward, like someone rose in a hurry and never came back. You step inside. The dust is thicker here, the light thinner. You walk slowly around the table. There are scratches on the surface, initials, numbers, tiny symbols carved into the wood by bored fingers that once signed death warrants. You run your hand over one. The shape is familiar. It means nothing now, but it meant something once. That's enough. A scroll rests beneath a candlestick. You lift it, it unrolls halfway, then stops. The ink has faded. The wax seal is cracked. The words are something about a border, a disagreement, a forgotten field. No one resolved it. The field is gone, probably a sheep pasture now. You move on, down the hallway to the Queen's study, still untouched, still carrying the scent of old paper, rose oil, and restraint. A book lies open on the desk, a psalm underlined once. Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man. Someone traced that line with a fingernail. You can still see the groove. The window beside the desk looks out over the river. The water moves steadily. It does not stop for kings. You drift again, through the corridor of banners. Each one hangs limp now. England, Wales, the lion, the cross, all stitched by hands long buried. The reds have darkened, the gold has dulled, but they still hang because someone decided they should. You reach the old chapel once more. There is no service today, just a lone monk sweeping sand from the floor. The sand is not from a storm. It's placed there intentionally to catch footsteps, so they know who came and when, but no one's come in days. The sand remains smooth, except for yours, though no one sees them. You step carefully. It feels wrong to disturb it. A candle burns near the tomb, lower now, shorter. The wax clings like tired skin. The flame bends toward the inscription. Henricus Rex, still the same, still the only words, still the only name. You sit on the bench, the one near the back. You've been here before, but this time you notice the carving in the wood, not initials, just a small phrase. We tried. No signature, no date, just that. It feels truer than the plaque. You rest a while, not because you need to, because the room asks you to. Outside, birds sing again, softly, not joyfully, just existing. The season is changing, winter becoming something else, the world reshaping itself without permission. You walk once more through the great hall. The throne is still missing. In its place, a stool. Someone must have been tired. You sit. It does not protest. You look up. The banners don't move. The dust hangs in the air like thought. And you begin to forget the details, not because they don't matter, but because you've carried them long enough. You return to the corridor behind the chapel. The stones beneath your feet feel warmer somehow, not from fire, from absence. No one walks here anymore, not even the curious. This place is beyond curiosity. It is the part of the palace where people stopped looking, stopped remembering. And the walls? They seem grateful. You run your hand along the stones. They do not respond, but they remember. They always do. You pass a small wooden chest with no lid. Inside, broken combs, a cracked mirror, a page from a letter torn in half. The ink reads, I am still loyal, though I may soon be, and nothing more. That's how most things end here, not with clarity, but with unfinished sentences. You move through the corridor to the courtyard where the fountain once flowed, now dry. Its basin is filled with leaves and feathers and time. Children once played here. So did spies. So did queens, all in different seasons. But the stones, they never cared who was laughing, only that someone had. You step into the center. The wind circles you once, then moves on. A shutter bangs softly above, not loud enough to draw attention, just loud enough to be remembered. You look up at the palace. It looms less than it used to. The windows blink slowly in the light, some open, some sealed, all tired. The tower casts a thin shadow now, not because it's shorter, but because the sun has grown less interested. You walk again, past the kitchen garden, where weeds have taken back authority. Thyme, wild, sage, confused, mint, pushing through cracks. Even the herbs have stopped obeying. You step inside the old armory. Rusting swords line the wall, once polished daily, now flaking gently into sleep. You lift one, not with force, with thought. It hums in your hand, then quiets. You place it back. The rack creaks, sighs, accepts. You walk through what used to be the hunting hall, now just a room with antlers and stories. Someone has draped a cloth over the biggest trophy, perhaps in shame, perhaps in kindness. You do not lift it. You have seen enough faces. You leave the hall and wander into the eastern gallery, a room lined with maps, the edges curled, the lands redrawn a dozen times. England, France, Calais, so much ink, so much erasing. A map near the door bears a stamp, property of His Majesty. You touch it, and the paper crumbles. So much for property. You walk into the final room, the one behind the throne. It is small, round, windowless, a room for breathing and for being no one. Henry came here, they say, when he forgot who he was, or needed to. You sit in the center. The walls pulse gently with nothing, not memory, not sorrow, just space. The air is full of unsaid things. You don't try to hear them. You let them be. You rest your head against the wall. It does not comfort you, but it does not ask anything of you either. And that, finally, feels like peace. You're standing in the doorway of a room that doesn't exist anymore. Not officially. No one speaks of it. It's not on maps, not in records, not in poems, but it's here. Always has been. It's the last room. The room where kings go when they're no longer kings. The walls are plain. No tapestries, no gold, so just silence. And a chair. Not a throne, just a chair, wooden, slightly uneven, one leg shorter than the others. Someone once tried to fix it. They failed. So you sit, it accepts you, not warmly, not coldly, just completely. There is no sound. Even the wind seems tired. On the table beside you is a single object, a crown, but not the one from paintings, not jeweled, not polished, iron, unadorned, heavy in a way that no metal ever should be. You don't touch it. You don't need to. You've carried its weight long enough. It rests here now, like a closed book. Across the room, a small door hangs ajar. Not a grand exit, just a quiet one. Beyond it, not light, not darkness, just nothing. The kind of nothing that invites sleep. You rise, not from duty, not from desire, but because it's time. Your steps make no sound. The air does not resist. The past does not chase you. You reach the door, place your hand on it. It does not move. It simply fades, like fog, and you walk forward. No pain, no applause, no last words, only stillness and breath, and the soft, sacred hush of being done. Behind you, the palace sleeps. The tapestries sleep. The servants, the stones, even the throne. They all sleep. And before you, nothing to remember, nothing to prove. Only this: you were, and now you aren't. And that, at last, is enough. Good night. Sleep deeply and let the king rest.